with Sonic 2 being the success it was, a third installment would inevitably begin development. However, they weren't just going to make another sequel. In fact, Sonic Team were determined to make the best Sonic game yet. In fact, the project was so big, so damn ambitious, that it was too much for a single Sega Genesis cartridge to handle, so they decided to give the game the good old Darth Maul treatment and split into two cartridges. The first half simply being called Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and the second half being called Sonic & Knuckles. Sonic 3 would never be released on February 1994, with Sonic & Knuckles soon following several months after. However, Sonic & Knuckles would come with a special lock-on technology, which would allow you to lock Sonic 3 onto Sonic & Knuckles to get Sonic 3 and Knuckles, pretty much letting you play the game how they originally intended for you to play it. Now, let's just sit down and take a moment and contemplate how much of a genius idea this was. They could have easily taken the lazy route and just cut out a huge chunk of content, giving us only half what its gamers deserved. Kind of like a certain game that came out in 2014 with a boom in the title. But instead they cut the game into two and added a lock-on feature to the second cartridge, enabling us to play the full game. Oh boy, Sonic 3 and Knuckles. When people talk about their favorite Sonic games, this title is often brought up. Many gamers and Sonic fans consider this to be one of the best games in the franchise. The magnum opus, the knees bees, the big shebang. And you know what? I easily agree. In fact, not only do I consider it to be the best of the series, not only do I consider it to be the best Sega Genesis game, at least from what I've played so far, but it's easily one of the best 2D side-scrollers ever, and one of my favorite games of all time. But why is that the case? Why is it so favored among the Sonic fanbase? These questions will be answered in this review. So sit back and relax as we look into Sonic 3 and Knuckles and find out what makes it so damn good. In terms of presentation, this game greatly surpasses all the other previous games we've talked about in this retrospective. Yes, even Sonic CD. The sprite work has improved since the last entry, and the sprites are very polished, the parallax scrolling is downright groovy, and the animation is so damn fine. I also really like the character models that were used in this game, mainly the ones used for Sonic and Knuckles. One nitpick I do have about the presentation is that Knuckles is really one of the only main characters to have animations reserved for cutscenes. This isn't all too bad, but it does make Sonic feel a little bit too static in the cutscenes. Although I might be asking a bit much, and after all, the sprites have enough personality in the actual gameplay to at least keep enough of a spirit to them. But, as always, it's the art direction that seals the show. You know how I said that I thought Sonic CD had the best art direction in the series? Well, kinda. However, I would say it's more tied with Sonic CD. While Sonic City's art direction works more in terms of creativity, Sonic 3 and Knuckles is more without detail, and attention to said detail. The foregrounds and backgrounds are filled with so many unique details that add to these wacky, colorful, and creative zones. It gives this game a huge sense of scale, although attention to detail isn't just only an application to the art direction, but also in a lot of other aspects in regards to this game. But I will get into that later. And then there's the soundtrack, which is just legendary. The soundtrack was composed by a lot of people, most notably being Howard Rawson, who has composed music for many video games and movies, John Sinuway, who is pretty much the god of Sonic music, and the king of pop himself, Michael Jackson. Although MJ was never credited due to how he was displeased with the sound quality of the Genesis, in which he didn't want to be credited. The sound quality has improved, the compositions are fantastic, and there's a lot of variety in the music. Some tracks like Angel Island Act 1 and 2 are calm and relaxing. Some tracks like Hydrosity Zone Act 1 and 2 and Mushroom Hill Zone Act 1 and 2 are upbeat and jazzy. Some tracks like Lava Reef Act 2 are very ambient and atmospheric. Other tracks like Big Arms Theme, Nucleus Zone are very intense and dramatic. And then there are the fast-paced and kick-ass tracks like Lava Reef Act 1 and Flying Battery Zone, as well as some triumphant and uplifting tracks like Sky Sanctuary Zone. But then there's also Ice Cap Zone, which is surprisingly enough very emotional. What's also great about the soundtrack is that each song greatly ties into each and every stage, which sets the mood perfectly and overall adds to each given situation. Overall, the soundtrack is just wonderful. So, how about that gameplay though? What does Sonic 3 Knuckles add to the formula that hasn't already been added before? What has been improved since last time? Quite a lot, actually. One of the biggest new features is the addition of multiple playable characters. Alongside with Sonic, you also get to fully play as Miles Tails Prower, and then there's the new character introduced into this game, that being Knuckles the Echidna. What makes this addition so great is that while all three of these characters control very similarly to each other, each of them has their own unique abilities that allows them to access different parts of the levels that other characters can't, which overall makes a playthrough with each of these characters feel different and unique. Tails can use his two tails to fly. It's pretty much the easy mode of the game. Knuckles, though, is pretty much the most unique out of all three playable characters. He can glide in the air, climb on walls, making him the most versatile in terms of exploring. However, one downside to his gameplay is that he has the lowest jump arc out of all the three playable characters, which makes him pretty much the hard mode of the game. You even get some exclusive boss fights. Overall, playing as Knuckles feels like playing as an entirely different game altogether. But what about Sonic, you may ask? What does he get that's new? Well, he gets the Insta Shield. The Insta Shield is a little mini shield that can be activated while pressing the jump button while in the air. It protects Sonic from most hazards and even extends his hitbox so you can damage a boss that's a bit hard to reach. Some people say that the Insta Shield is useless, but I completely disagree with that. In fact, the Insta Shield has gotten me out of a couple of dangerous situations before. It's really all about skill, so if you're able to master it and know when to use it at the right times, then it would come and help in the long run. However, Sonic's moveset doesn't end there. You can also obtain different abilities through the new Elemental Shields. The Elemental Shields are shields that not only keep you from losing rings when getting hit, but also protect you from certain environmental hazards. The Fire Shield protects you from lava and fire, the Bubble Shield keeps you from drowning, and the Electric Shield keeps you from getting electrocuted, as well as attracting rings, which also makes it good for also getting extra lives. Now, while all the characters do get to use the Elemental Shields, Tails and Knuckles mainly stick to their formal abilities. But when it comes to Sonic, the Elemental Shields replace the Insta Shield with a different ability altogether that fits with said Elemental Shield. These abilities range from a Fire Dash, to a Double Jump, to a Balance Attack. Overall, the Elemental Shields are very useful, especially when you're playing as Sonic. That, and if you take advantage of the abilities that come with the Elemental Shields, you can pull off some pretty crazy shit. Sonic 3 Knuckles easily has some of the best level design in any 2D platform I've ever played. This game takes speed, platforming, and exploration and blends them together perfectly. For one thing, there's the exploration. These zones are huge! In fact, these levels are almost on par with the levels in Turrican 2 when it comes to size and scale. And seeing how big the levels are in that game, that's saying a lot. There are so many things in these zones, so many routes, so many detours, so many hidden areas with little goodies, so many ways to just go through a level. It also adds to the whole sense of scale that Sonic 3 Knuckles provides and makes these stages feel all the more like big worlds. One thing that's just so great about the level design is how speed and platforming are handled together. There are parts of the game where you're just blast through set pieces, but oftentimes the game slows you down a bit to go through some platforming challenges. But due to how excellently laid out the platforming is in this game, depending on how skilled and badass you are, you could probably just whiz through the platforming like no tomorrow. The platforming in general is very solid. For one thing, the platforming and obstacles are all mostly environment based. making level designs feel all the more tangible. Yeah, there are some instances of blocky platforming, but even then, they're still all laid out very well. That and I have nothing to complain about. A lot of the level design is also based around interaction, making level designs feel very tangible. This game also has some very strong variety. Not always, but sometimes an event usually occurs in the middle of an act or in between Act 1 and 2 of a zone that changes the environment. Sometimes it's cosmetic, sometimes it mildly changes the level, but other times it can entirely change the look of a level. This game never gets stale. Now that I think about it, there isn't a single zone in this game that is even bad to begin with. Well, the only zone that comes close, barely, is Sandopolis Zone. That's only due to the second act. The first act is perfectly fine. Hell, the second act isn't even that bad, especially when you compare it to the likes of Labyrinth Zone from Sonic 1 and Metropolis Zone from Sonic 2. One thing that's also a major improvement in comparison to the previous titles are the special stages. In the previous titles, the special stages are either controlled really badly or just badly designed in general. But that's not the case in Sonic 3 and Knuckles. For one, instead of having to collect 50 rings and jumping into a portal at the end of a checkpoint or at the end of a level, you actually have to go to the special stages by jumping into a giant warp ring that's hidden in the hidden area of a level. Which takes away the tediousness of trying to get into a special stage. And my second reason is that the special stages are both controlled very decently and are very well designed. In these special stages, you are tasked with touching all the blue spheres while avoiding the red ones. But be careful, as with every blue sphere you touch, each one turns into a red sphere. That, and you also don't want to take too long in the special stages. The more time you take, the faster Sonic's movement becomes in special stages, which in turn can lead to things getting very hectic. The thing I love about the special stages is that they are challenging, but in a good way. It can get very hard, but not in the Sonic 2 special stages kind of way, where they just throw in a bunch of shit at you that you can't react to in time. But it's more about skill over memorization, which I easily prefer. As always, beating all the special stages grants you the ability to use Super Sonic, which has not changed since Sonic 2, which is perfectly fine. Now, while you can collect all 7 Chaos Emeralds, you can also acquire an additional set of Super Emeralds. The second set of special stages are much harder than the first, like, really harder. Beating all the Super Emerald stages grants you Hypersonic. As of writing this review, I have yet to collect all the Super Emeralds, but from what I've seen, Hypersonic looks to be really OP. From what I've heard, Hypersonic is apparently gave kids epileptic seizures. In addition, Tails and Knuckles also get super forms of their own. Hyper Knuckles climbs on and glides faster, and Super Tails is acquainted with murderous flickies that kill all enemies in their path. Yeesh, talk about a savage. Anyways, with all that stuff out of the way, there is one particular thing about this game that I want to briefly mention, that being the stage progression. In the games preceding Sonic 3 and Knuckles, whenever you'd beat a zone, you would randomly port to the next zone without any explanation. Now, this wasn't a bad thing, as this was a standard in platformers at the time. However, Sonic 3 and Knuckles takes this a little bit further. In all the zones, every second act kicks off where the first act ends, and in between every zone, you get a neat little cutscene that serves as an explanation for how you got to said environment. Now, this might seem like too much of a small detail to be praising, but this does significantly add to the game's immersion. This little detail makes everything feel connected, which in turn gives us this sensation of traveling through a big world, or in this case, a big island. To me, this was the first Sonic game to truly give off an adventurous vibe, which made this game feel all the more grand. Yeah, there was one instance of this in Sonic 2, but bitches beware, Sonic 3 took this to a whole new level. What's surprising about Sonic 3 and Knuckles is that for a classic Sonic game, it has a very strong narrative. Now, the plot is very simple and straightforward. Sonic and Tails discover a mysterious island named Angel Island, and they go over to investigate, to which they are ambushed by Knuckles, a red echidna who is also the guardian of the Master Emerald. Knuckles is tricked by Dr. Eggman into thinking that Sonic is after the Emerald, and throughout the game, he constantly screws with Sonic. Meanwhile, Dr. Eggman tries to bring the Death Egg back into space after it was damaged by Sonic in the previous game. This game didn't use text boxes to tell its story, but rather it uses its environments, the music, and the character animations to tell a story. With most of the levels in this game, you get a feeling that a plot is going on in the background, which adds to the immersion of the game. This game can get pretty epic at times, especially in the last 4 zones. It can even get a bit atmospheric at times, especially when it gets to the Lava Reef zone. There are also some little neat details that you can only see if you closely observe. And this is one of those rare games that mixes story and gameplay flawlessly. What I find neat about this game, about the games of the Genesis era, is that they sort of tell a story of progression. Sonic starts off small, saving little woodland creatures, and making a couple friends, and then he eventually discovers his true powers through the Chaos Emeralds to save the world. And oh my, does this game have one hell of a climax. The gameplay, the setting, the music, the tension, it's overall one of the greatest climaxes I have seen of any video game, and was overall the perfect way to wrap up the classic Genesis era. In conclusion, Sonic 3 and Knuckles is a masterpiece. Not only did it perfect the gameplay style of the Genesis era, but it also set the standards for what a Sonic game could be. And to be honest, there is yet to be a Sonic game that can come close to this work of art. Due to this being so creative, so polished, so huge, so ambitious, and just so epic, I can't help but regard Sonic 3 Knuckles as not just the best Sonic game, but one of the best games I have played, period. If you're a Sonic fan, or is just a fan of the side-scroller genre, and haven't played this, then I highly recommend playing this any way you can. Your best bet is to get it on the Sega Mega Collection, which comes along with other Genesis titles that I've reviewed. However, you won't be able to play Sonic 3 Knuckles right away, as you'll have to unlock it first. How do you unlock it? I'm not telling you. You look it up for yourself, you lazy dipshits. Next time on the Sonic Retrospective, we will take a look at everything else that came out during the classic era, including spin-off titles, ports, canceled and unreleased titles, and much more. Until then, thanks for watching, and see you in the next video. That's whenever the hell it gets uploaded. I'm pretty terrible with my upload schedule anyway.
Has it got huge new zones? Yeah! Twice as big as Sonic 2? Yeah! The new 3D special stage? Yeah! And the new game save feature? Yeah! Do it!
New Sonic 3 is now available at a store near you.
Sega!
New Sonic 3 game cartridge and Sega Genesis sold separately.